Alright, so it's been a while since I last dropped a video, and we have UFC Houston this weekend, which features and showcases Sean Strickland versus Fluffy Hernandez. Now, UFC Houston as a whole, I'm not entirely excited about it. I mean, you have a few cool fighters that can maybe showcase, like Jacoby Smith, who's fighting this new guy that stepped in. You have Jeff Neal, who is trying to bounce back after coming the comeback, after getting knocked out, like completely flatlined by Prates. He's taking on Uros Medic or something like that. You have Milkaziel Costa, the Dalmatian, versus Dan Ige. And then you have like a very like whatever, like typical bad heavyweight fight between Sergey Spivak and Ante Delija. So not a lot in this card that I'm excited about. Honestly, don't even really there's really not much. It's just the main fight that I'm hyped for, which is Sean Strickland versus Fluffy Hernandez. Always an entertaining spectacle when Sean Strickland's involved. And he's coming off, of course, his loss where he got pretty much almost an immediate rematch with Dricus. He had that very boring pitter-patter check kick type of performance versus Paulo Costa. Won that fight, came back, fought Dricus, lost, got his nose broken into. We haven't seen him since then. Then he had the controversial, he got suspended for, trying to attack that guy in the octagon after that guy told him to suck it. Very so there's a whole storyline to why Sean Strickland has been out of action for this long. And he's coming to take on, Anthony Hernandez, who's on an 8-fight win streak right now, a dark horse guy, but not even really a dark horse. I think he's top 3 in the division right now behind Hamzat and Dricus, unless Dricus proves me otherwise. But I think Anthony Hernandez is on pace to really, get a title shot because this dude has been rampaging through people. He's been little brothering all these middleweights. Don't even need to mention, I do need to mention, but Roman Dolidze completely sunned him, completely dominated him, submitted Roman Kopylov. Who else did he beat? Brendan Allen, so many different dominant performances. Michelle Pereira. Fluffy Hernandez continues to evolve and just continue to excel in his skill set as a fighter. One of the most talented grapplers in this division. He's definitely been on some, he's almost always main eventing fight nights. So this is just continuing that streak. But I think this is really the fight where Fluffy Hernandez breaks through into that next level. Beating a guy like Sean Strickland, claiming to now have maybe a number 1 contenders fight. Because yes, newsflash, I'm going with Fluffy Hernandez in this fight. But I don't think it's as straightforward as a lot of people think. I think while I am picking Fluffy Hernandez and favoring him to win this fight, I don't think he completely steamrolled Sean Strickland. I know a lot of people are saying Sean Strickland is the fighter that has the style to combat it. And maybe Sean Strickland surprises us. But yeah, just with what I've seen from Fluffy, his cardio, he just gets in your face and he's smiling while you're trying to tag him up. He was just smiling and getting in Roman Dolidze's face. Roman Dolidze couldn't do nothing with a guy like Fluffy Hernandez. Fluffy Hernandez completely just puts on a dominant after dominant performance. Now, he's been having injury issues, which is why we couldn't see him fight Reinier de Ridder in Vancouver. He's been having constant injury issues throughout his fighting career, and that could really catch up to him if he continues at this pace. I'm hoping now he could stay healthy and be more active because he doesn't take too much damage in these fights. It's mostly grappling masterclasses on his part. And, he's not taking that much damage and accumulation, but in this fight, I'm going to ride with Fluffy. I'm going to ride with Fluffy to take down Sean Strickland. Maybe not by finish, but in a 5-round fight, I think Fluffy's going to come out on top. They call him the middleweight Marab. He's a different level. And I'm going to be one of those people that has the take that he could give Hamza Chimaev his most competitive fight. I never will say he could beat Hamza, but I think he could give Hamza the most competitive fight out of anyone in the middleweight division, more than Nasruddin Imavov. Because Imavov is a sniper on the feet, but when it comes to grappling and stuff, I feel like it's going to be a Dricus du Plessis type of performance for Hamza, where he's just going to smudge wrestle Nasruddin Imavov for 5 rounds when that fight gets announced, whenever it does. But in the meantime, Fluffy stepping back in there versus Sean Strickland in Houston. Let's see it. This is going to be a good one. Now, aside from UFC Houston, right, with whoever I just mentioned is on the card, we have a couple of rumors circling around about Joshua Van's next fight, right? Joshua Van, the flyweight champion right now, a certified legend for sure in the sport, but let's be honest, we can't truly feel like this guy's the decisive champion until he beats Pantoja. He just didn't really beat him. The fight lasted less than 2 minutes, and Pantoja broke his arm. Joshua Van, he was looking pretty good in those first couple seconds, the first minute of that fight. Like, he looked like he was going to try to really give Pantoja a run for his money, but ultimately, the way I saw that fight going was Pantoja steamrolling and putting Van on the ground and submitting him like he's been doing to everyone else. So until Van beats Pantoja, but still, he got the belt around his waist. People give him a lot of like discredit for like, and people were giving him a lot of hate for like the way he celebrated after that. I guess he definitely took it a little bit too far, but again, like he said, he just changed his life forever. He's the champion of the world, regardless of how it happened. So I think he have a reason to want to celebrate the way he does. I mean, he's literally like 23 years old, this guy. Like, so yeah, Joshua Van, he's looking for his next fight. He's been going back and forth with Manel Kape online. Like, this dude just wants to get in there and fight. He just called out the UFC and he's like, yo, you guys like are telling me to shut up, but like I'm trying to just stay active. Like, you're getting upset at me for calling out people, but I'm trying to stay active. So Joshua Van is calling for his fight, and it does look like he has his next fight booked. And apparently, Manel Kape has already like made it confirmed for us who it's going to be, because we obviously knew it was either going to be Tatsuro Taira or Manel Kape. Both on runs right now. I mean, Tatsuro Taira did lose to Brandon Royval, but came back versus Park when he was supposed to fight really Amir Abazi, and then beat Brandon Moreno at UFC 323. He's I think 18-1, crazy record, Japanese flyweight, scary contender. And Manel Kape, ever since like losing to Mohamed Makhachev, he came back and had a resurgence, styling on Bruno Silva. He just beat Brandon Royval in literally the first round, like with a crazy shot. And I forgot who he beat in the middle. He's on like a 3-fight win streak. But Manel Kape is also a very scary contender for Joshua Van. And I definitely think that like maybe the UFC is trying to save Joshua Van as much as they can before, because I think Kape will take the belt off Van. If they give Kape is definitely the most dangerous style for Joshua Van in this division. Striking for striking. And even Taira, like, I think Taira is definitely super scary also for Joshua Van. I think there's no way out for Joshua Van. Like, we'll see if I mean, dude, these guys are going to be the two fighters that in a title fight that are both from the 2000s era. But basically what I'm trying to say is Manel Kape confirmed that the UFC promised Taira the title shot over him. So it looks like we're not going to see Kape yet. We're going to see Taira versus Van. And they're saying it's going to be a co-main event probably in UFC 327 in Miami. At first you could think, oh, maybe they do as a co-main event under a BMF title fight in UFC 326. But that might just be way too short notice for a title fight. Like, that's already coming up very soon, and they still do not have a main event announced. I mean, a co-main event announced for UFC 326. They said on the broadcast by Australia that there was going to be a co-main event underneath Max Holloway and Charles Oliveira, and they still have not announced any kind of co-main event for that fight card. So they really got to announce some fights very soon, but it makes more sense for this to be in Miami, but as a co-main event, there's no way they would put Taira and Van as a main event unless they're really, really trying to like save everyone and all their talent for the White House. That's the only reason why I could see them, but there's no way. There's no way they're doing a place like Miami with a flyweight main event as a title fight. This is usually always, unfortunately, flyweight guys are the little guys. They're going to get the co-main events. They're not really headlining pay-per-views. Well, I should call them numbered events now. But that's the direction we're heading in. It looks like Taira and Van is booked for UFC 327 in Miami. It's probably a co-main event. I'm probably a super stacked card. I'm already seeing how this card is shaping up. There's a lot of rumors of different fights. Maybe Duplessis versus Brendan Allen's going to be on there, or JDM versus Prates. They're saying maybe the main event's going to be either Pereira versus Gane for an interim heavyweight title, or Yuri versus Olberg for the vacant light heavyweight. Like, these are all good options. So there's a lot of rumors circling around Miami. But that's the future of the flyweight division right here. While they're still waiting for Pantoja to heal up, they're going to keep Kape shelved for now, and they're going to do Taira versus Van, and I imagine Kape gets who's next. Because I think Kape would probably be the more entertaining fight than a Taira, but either way, Van's going to get probably Taira next. So that's the latest news on that, on Van's next fight. And then last but not least, what's been coming out over the last day or so, and it was short-lived, guys, but it seems they're not going to do Islam and Topuria. Like, they're probably doing Gaethje versus Topuria. It only makes sense. Like, the UFC wants to go the safe route of putting an American to represent the. Again, why would they want to put an American on the main event of the White House just to get knocked down in front of his entire country, in front of the President of the United States? Like, that's what we all know is going to happen. Topuria's putting his lights out. Topuria's putting Gaethje's lights out. Simple. .com, as Arman Sarukian says. But, yeah, Topuria, obviously, he's back in training. He now has his eyes on the White House. And Dana White said that they actually already completed the structure of the card. They have an idea of what they want to do, and they have two options for what they want to do for the White House. And that they're actually going to be in the process now of, I guess, fully giving offers to fighters and starting to make the matches for real. Like, he's going to go to meet the president this week, and then they're going to go discuss, what the best layout of the logistics and production, and then, of course, the card itself. They got to first make sure Trump approves of, like, who's fighting on this card. But it most likely is going to be the American Justin Gaethje taking on Ilia Topuria, because apparently also Garry and Islam is the next fight at welterweight. Ali Abdelaziz said that Justin's going to be fighting for the undisputed gold regardless at the White House, and Islam's going to be fighting a real welterweight. And Garry said in a previous interview he would go to Georgia to train on his wrestling if he got that Islam fight. And just today he posted on his story that he landed in Georgia. And all the reports are saying that this is probably the UFC's next course of action. To do Topuria, Gaethje in June, and then Islam and Garry in like July, or maybe even before in May. Because May's numbered event still needs to be figured out. So that's what they're saying, and that's what all signs are leading towards, that Garry versus Islam is going to be the next fight at welterweight and Islam's next challenge. Now, I will say this. I love this fight, and I love this fight a lot more than Kamaru Usman, because people were saying it's going to be Usman, and I could have seen the UFC doing that. Doing Kamaru Usman, just giving him, after one bounce-back win versus Joaquin Buckley after 3 straight losses, Usman just cuts the line. He cuts the line on Prates, Morales, and Garry and gets the title shot because they have the same manager, and it's sure it's a legacy fight, but at the same time, like, Usman, he needs another fight. And Garry definitely has done enough. I think over Usman, I think Garry definitely, I would rather see Garry in that position. So I'm happy to hear that these are the reports right now. Because Garry, he came off the win versus, he lost to Shavkat, then beat Prates, beat Bilal Muhammad. Like, pretty sick by Garry right now. And, people find him annoying and stuff, but honestly, I think he's a gamer. Like, I just think he loves to fight, and he's actually about it, because he takes on the toughest fights, and he's about it. Like, from Ireland, like, we're literally getting Conor versus Khabib 2-0 away from this. Although I think Topuria and Islam is the real Conor Khabib, because that's the biggest fight you can make, the mega fight in the sport. But, yeah, Garry, so if this is the case, I'm not too mad at it, because I'm happy to see that Islam's fighting Usman. But again, over all of this and above all, I want to see Islam versus Topuria at the White House. There's no bigger fight. It's the biggest event probably in the company's history, a one-of-one event. Literally, they're not going to get another chance again to make a fight at the White House. And the whole world's going to be watching. It's a few months into this new Paramount era. Like, it's going to be on CBS or whatever. Like, this is going to be massive. And you want to put on the biggest ever fights, and it looks like we're definitely not having Jones and Pereira. Maybe Conor's the co-main event or the featured fight versus a Masvidal or Nate Diaz. But listen, you could only dream, you can only hope. I'm saying this is probably what the UFC is doing at the end of the day. They're just doing Garry versus Islam, and then they're going to do Topuria versus Gaethje, and we're just going to watch Gaethje and American get flatlined. Hopefully the rest of the card on the White House is stacked. It really better be stacked. Like, who knows who they had in conversations in their matchmaking meetings. I'm sure they discussed Bo Nickel and Michael Chandler as, like, earlier fights, and Colby Covington. All these, like, typical big, like, American personalities in the promotion. But the best fighters in the sport are really from other countries. Like, if you really want to put on a crazy White House card, do Topuria, Islam, Gaethje, Arman Sarukian for, I guess, the vacant undisputed title, because Ilia will vacate. And then do, like, Conor versus whoever you want to put as, like, the old head legacy featured fight for just pure entertainment, because I don't even really care about Conor's fight that much, even though it will be a spectacle and massive for the sport. and then do whatever else you want to do. But you got to stack up this card. You really got to stack it up. The White House, like after everything we've been hearing, like it's a one of one. But yeah, Ian, Garry, and Islam looks like it's next, which it's honestly makes sense. It makes sense the UFC is going to go this direction. I mean, Islam has a whole line of guys in his division. Topuria, they both haven't even defended their titles in their divisions right now as two-weight division champions. Both guys need to defend at least once in their own divisions. And Topuria having Gaethje as an undisputed as the interim in his division, and he's American. Like, I just think when you have the opportunity to make fights like this that both guys are calling for on the biggest stage literally ever in the company, how do you not do that? I get like it's complicated. Like one guy has to move up in weight or one guy has to drop in weight. Maybe you do catch weight, and both guys have work to do in their divisions. But I think you have to put that all aside and make the biggest fight possible, the mega fight. Because when else do we get these massive fights? We haven't gotten these massive fights in years. They never got Jones Aspinall. Not getting Pereira Jones. Nothing. The UFC just continuing to make the safe choices, making the safe fights if they feel are on brand, but end up don't delivering. That same shock value, that same wow factor, that same butterflies like and chills and goosebumps on my arm that I'm about to see Islam versus Topuria at the White House. Like I don't get that anymore. Like I want to feel alive again about the sport and feel like goosebumps when we're about to head into like a fight week and seeing the face-offs and this and that. It's going to be very interesting now in the next few months what is going to go down. Who's going to be announced on this White House card? Who's going to be even on UFC 327 Miami? And how they're just going to match up the rest of this year. Because now we're getting into the main prime of the year. We're getting into the summer, the spring. They go to Miami. They're going to Vegas, the White House, International Fight Week. Summer is prime time for the biggest stars to come out. And that's what clearly the UFC saving all these guys for this portion of the year, quarter two. Because the first two cards were all right. It's pretty safe main events. You had Gaethje, Pimblett, Volk versus Lopez 2, which was stupid, but whatever. And then you're having a BMF title fight between Holloway and Oliveira, which isn't even a title fight. It's a main event 326 without even a good co-main right now. So who even knows, like, we're going to see now what they're going to do for 327 with the title fight. They do two, one with Van and Taira and then the other one. But yeah, that's a story, guys. This is what's going on in the sport of UFC. I just wanted to keep, we got to talk, keep it moving, keep it consistent. So I'll see you guys after UFC Houston. And that's really it.